What's up, you guys? Happy Wednesday! I got my counterpart. It does look really fuzzy. I got my counterpart back. Can you tell my kids have probably had my phone? All right, what's up, you guys? So we want to jam on a conversation that Brandon had with a couple of our members the other day. Hi, Haley. And kind of some good questions that you guys can ask yourself. So give us a hello, a hi when you guys jump on. Brandon's voice is miraculously back, so that's a good thing. So
yeah, it was there yesterday morning. Then, like, basically immediately after class, it started dwindling quickly, and then I couldn't talk all last night. So I'll see if I can hold it through this this live.
Yeah, so hopefully it goes well. So all right, guys. So we get a lot of questions about nutrition and making change, and I think there's a lot of, in my opinion, and I'll let you tell the story, but I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions of like, oh, if I did X, then the answer is Y, or if I did this, then there's that, right? And there's all these like assumptions of things that we've been told that may not be true for your scenario or for that time in life. So Brandon's gonna tell you about a conversation he had the other day and kind of some takeaways from it.
So in the kind of leading this conversation we see quite often when we have clients and we're working with basically, I mean, you can kind of put this in anything, but especially when it comes to nutrition, right? Like when we talk about nourishment, there are many ways to nourish yourself, your mind, body, soul, but we're going to talk about basically your what you eat and put in your mouth and digest. And so, you know, for the longest time, you know, we were taught what we did, and what we kind of the approach that we had with a lot of our clients was basically the approach that many coaches have when we're talking about nutrition. And it's basically, well, this method I know works, and because I've done it and because this is my methodology, I'm going to try to basically correspond and get you to believe and align with this methodology, right? And you see that from literally if you line up from like the 1900s, almost every year, if not every 5 years, there's a new nutrition, a new way of eating that has come all the way up into this moment in time, right? Like right now, you're seeing a lot of plant-based, you're seeing carnivore. 4 or 5 years ago, it was paleo. When we first came on the scene, it was zone, right? Like there's always something.
A lot of keto.
It's keto. There's a lot of new things that always get thrown out there. And so what we've been trying to acknowledge and talk about a lot over these last 78 episodes is first and foremost, food means a lot of different things, right? It's not just the basis, and what we did for years, right? We tried to put it into that black and white, right versus wrong. Either it makes you healthy or fat, or I'm sorry, it makes you healthy or unhealthy, or makes you fat or thin, right? Like that was the world that we tend to live in when we're talking about health, wellness, and fitness. Is we try to live in black or white.
And rules, right? Yes. Like living in rules, living in structure, living in fear. All of those things is where all of those diets play. No matter what they are, they're living in those three things: fear, rules, and what did I say?
You said 3 rules. Fear, rules.
There were 3: fear, rules. I don't know. I lost it. You guys go back, rewind it. Good grief! I'm gonna stop talking.
But essentially, it's on the standpoint of not fully understanding that food plays massive meets essentially all our needs in life, right? Like, yet again, we're going to correspond and tie these into the 6 human needs, because everything we do is based off of trying to meet our needs. And food and how you approach and how you go about the relationship with food can meet all 6 of your needs depending on each moment in time. And if we're not aware of that, yet again, everything starts with awareness and curiosity. If we're not aware of that, we can lead ourselves down into a path of feeling not so well surrounding the plan that we're going with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Frustrated.
Yes.
Out of alignment.
So basically, the thing that Courtney always talks about is learning to not live in black and white. It's learning to
dance in the grid.
Dance in the grid.
I was like, oh God, what do I say?
So
I have no brain cells today, you guys.
So going over this conversation, and this is something that happens, over 20 years of working with people. This is a conversation that has happened more times than can even count, right? And so it was basically somebody just got done working out, right? And it was, oh, I want to go here. I just got done working out. I want to go here and kind of reward myself. I want to do these kind of things. And the counterpart on that was, well, go ask Brandon that, because if he gives you permission, then we can go, right? Like it was basically, yet again, it was a rule of, is so long as I give permission, you can follow through with it, right? And so, before we get into it, oftentimes the question that we tend to try to ask questions that nobody else tends to ask, is first and foremost first off, well, why do you want those things, right? Like let's not put them in like, well, you just got done working out. Is that going to be the best decision for you right now in this moment in time to elicit the response, i.e. of you losing weight or whatever that you're trying to get, right? Like that's not what we were going for. It was essentially, well, what about that is making you want to go to those places? Okay. And I will fully give them props and honor the fact of like they were very aware of what was going on in that moment in time, and they were honoring the fact of like what that food actually meant for them, right? And so they were choosing to go to a fast food restaurant and there was between two fast food restaurants. There was one that was probably maybe a little bit better choice, a little bit more options on a healthier standpoint, and the other one was not so well on there. So, and yet again, I'm not going to say it was good or bad. All right, so I'm going to get into why we don't want to do that here in a second, but it was based off of the options of what they could choose. And so the next question is, okay, well, when you eat that followed, okay, what are you going to get if you go to those two places? And the question that followed that was, okay, what does that food represent to you? And her initial response, right, and it didn't really take much time, was happiness. Right? Like when I have those things, that elicits the feeling of happiness and joy. Right? And so for me as a coach and coming from that standpoint is if I tell this person, if their relationship to that is it makes me happy, it makes me feel joyful, it makes me feel just those type of emotions. If I tell them that they cannot have that, right? Like I'm going to make the hard set rule of, well, too bad you cannot have that. What do you think that interpretation by that person would be?
He wants me to be unhappy.
Exactly, right? By me telling you, no, you're going to break the rules of you just exercising and going to have these fast food things that elicits happiness for you. But I'm going to be that person that even though I may have the best intentions as your coach, I'm going to tell you, you are no longer allowed to have that. I.e., I'm telling you, even on a subconscious level, I'm telling you that you're no longer allowed to be happy.
Well, can I jump in for a second? And when we think about this, you guys, when you think about rules, probably everyone on this has been on some kind of diet, some kind of plan, some kind of wanting to change, something like that, right, in your life. And the minute you start a diet, I know at least for me, there's this like visceral tightening of like, oh shit, life is going to be no fun. I can't be happy. I have to hate what I'm eating. It's going to be terrible, right? Like all those sensations come up. And like Brandon just said, it's that subconscious thing of, if having that food elicits a sense of happiness for you, and all of a sudden your coach or the diet plan you're following or you or whatever tells you can't have that, like unconsciously you become less happy, right? And so, and we could talk about replacing that happiness and like not letting food be that for you, but if you don't understand what's going on that level deeper and subconsciously what's happening with that because of the need that it's meeting for you, or maybe it's actually that when they went to those places, they were spending time together and it was just the two of them and not the rest of their family, right? So it may have been connection and quality time that they were actually getting by doing that versus just going home, right? So there's a whole lot of things that go on. But if as the coach, Brandon, had said, no, you can't do that, that's bad for you, then like, what's the sensation that's going to happen from that? And then all of a sudden he's the bad guy and then they feel bad. And like the whole thing just goes down this negative spiral because we don't go a couple questions deeper.
Well, and with that is, if you can relate to that, what is the reality and what's the probably sense of the sustainability of what that will actually be, right? Yeah. And we've seen it thousands of times. I can tell you the answer just based off my experience. But if you've gone down that rabbit hole a little bit for whatever, because 99.9% of especially Americans have followed some sort of diet plan in their life. 99.4% have also failed and fallen off of that, right?
Because you have rules.
Yes. And so with that is without having the awareness, and that's why honestly, like honoring and giving her props of understanding of like what that food does for her is actually having awareness of like, no, these are the things that I want to experience right now, right? Where most people when I ask that question is usually, I don't know, it's just because it sounds good, right?
Or it's easy.
Because it's easy, right? It's convenient. It's whatever, those kind of things, right? And so that's why, in addition, is asking, okay, first off, why do you want those things, right? Because every decision we make is based off our feelings and emotions, right? And so if I'm wanting certain foods, there's also probably an emotional and feeling attachment tied to that, right? When I'm angry, when I'm stressed, when I'm underslept, when I'm all these type of things, I typically want a different food source than when I'm joyful, when I'm moving, when I'm out with my family, when I'm all these kind of things. Usually my decisions are two different things on that. So it's being aware of those things before you go and follow through with it. And at the same time, when you do have those, is what is your relationship with those things, right? And why it's not important or why it is important to not label it good or bad, right? Because yet again, we already distinguished, like if I told her she couldn't have those things and she was feeling that would elicit a response of happiness, i.e. I would be telling her she's not allowed to be happy. Same thing if I tell her, okay, those foods are actually bad for you. If you eat those, that is going to not elicit the response you want, and that's going to be bad for you. Also, what would you imagine she would also hear if she decided to eat those foods?
I'm a bad person.
I'm a bad person.
I want you guys to think about this, because we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't really ever thought this out. But I mean, I was on diets for 25 years, right? Like there was always good food and bad food. And literally, I never realized that subconsciously, if I had bad food, I felt like a bad person, right? I felt not, like I wasn't following my plan. I wasn't committed to my goals. I was self-sabotaging. I was doing all of the things. And so now if Brandon had said those things, she would have been like, okay, so he doesn't want me to be happy and he just called me a bad person. How well do you think that's going to go? Mm-hmm. Even if she followed through, right? Or didn't follow through. Because if she didn't follow through, then how do you think she's going to feel?
No, I mean, follow through as far as...
Yeah, so say that she asked you that question and you said... You basically made her feel unhappy and you made her feel like a bad person, and she went and got that food anyway. How would she feel after?
Oh, she'd feel like she was letting herself down. She'd feel like every other person that we ever work with, I don't have willpower. I can't stick to the things I promised myself. I can't trust myself, right? And the only thing that allows me to experience happiness is by having this food. And the only way I can connect with myself, the only way I can give all the sensation, the only way I can meet my needs, because yet again, that's what we're trying to do, is by eating this food, because it's the only thing that understands me in this moment in time.
Right. And how would she feel about you?
There'd be no trust. I wouldn't have her best intentions in mind, right? Like I would be basically...
You'd be the bad guy.
I would be the bad person in there, as opposed to understanding that my job as a coach, and yet again, everyone has their own thing. My job as a coach isn't to be a dictator. It's to hold her to her ask, right? Like her ask... maybe these things that she wants to do, right? It may be getting into ultimate fitness and become the best athlete and everything else she wants to be. But in the same regard is if I'm holding and put all of a sudden these shackles around her, right? Especially this is the very beginning of this relationship. If I put shackles on this relationship, I put shackles on all these rules and everything else, and she was having, 6 days a week, she was going out to have fast food. She was all doing things. And all of a sudden I tell her in this moment in time, she's no longer allowed to do this because she needs more rules and restrictions in her life, as opposed to understanding the reality of her following through with that is very minimal. Yeah. And she may do it because we've had people do it. We've had in the last probably 3 years, over 200 people go through something like that. And the reason why we're talking about this, because we know for a fact, is because we've seen that amount of people go into this restricted realm of following rules and restriction and all these kind of things, right? Well, if it's the calories in and I want to lose weight or I want to get this response, I do this plan. But at the same time, if it conflicts with my rules, my values, my needs, I'll do it for a short amount of time. and I may see results, but if my relationship surrounding that is the only way that I can see results, is I have to restrict myself to the point of not feeling good. I have to take out all the things that I enjoy in my life. Not to mention, if like what Courtney said, my way of getting connection is by sitting down for a meal with my family, and whether it be fast food or whether it be a giant Mexican dinner or an Italian dinner. That was the household I grew up in. And all of a sudden that is conflicting with my view or my values of how I meet love and connection with my family. I may do it for a short amount of time, but sooner or later there's going to be conflict there that I'm going to revert back to the things that are most vital to me, right? If love and connection is higher on the totem pole for me, I'm always going to follow my way back through there, because if that is the way I meet my needs, is by sitting down with my family and eating things that aren't on my diet plan, I'm going to fall back through that. And once I do fall into that, i.e. the relationship I have with that is all of a sudden I'm a bad person. I can't trust myself. I have no willpower. I have all these underlying stories that follow through that. That's where we start to follow this yo-yo effect. And that's where we feel like the only way I can do these things is if I put more rules on my day-to-day plan.
What is she yelling about?
I don't know.
Sorry, our littlest one is just like screaming her head off, and I can't decide if she's actually okay or if she's just talking to her sister. So anyway, guys, so we got way sidetracked. We're very passionate about this. Like, really, you guys, we could write a whole book on the 6 human needs of food. So we're going to make a PDF for you guys. So if you want to know more about this, let me know and we'll get it to you when it's done. But if you don't know about 6 human needs, go back to episode, I think, 3. When quarantine started a long time ago. It wasn't even labeled an episode. I should go back and label them all, but go watch that. But how did you help them come to a resolution or a middle ground in this? How did you help them dance in the gray?
So essentially, you guys, when it comes to anything, yet again, it's making micro promises, micro commitments, right? It's small steps, right? Like most of the time, and yet again, the reason why I'm talking about this is because we did this for years is, well, you know what? You just started the gym. You're asking for this result. So we're going to get there tomorrow. So we're going to, sorry, I was putting a phrase. So we're going to take away all your old things and we're going to eat super clean. We're going to go no sugar, Whole30. We're going to go militant on this thing. So kind of quick story is we went back. If you ever seen Rob and Big, right? Like we posted this years ago. Like you ever see the episode? If you're too young to know what Rob and Big is,
I'm sorry.
Google it. Yeah, I'm sorry. But essentially Big, who was Rob's security guard, and he was 450-pound massive man, was going to try to lose weight. And so they went to a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and they were going through the whole spectrum, everything. Well, her plan was essentially like, okay, I want you to do these things, but I also at the end of the week want you to go to your favorite fast food restaurant, right? And so that like blew Rob's mind. He's like, no, you need to go militant on this thing. You need to go nip this thing in the butt. We need to go hard or go home. Like he needs to get all this crap out of his system and everything else. And does that work in some shape or some form? When we're talking about drugs and alcohol, that's probably going to be the best. That's why like AA, all those things is because we want to get those out of our system. But there's also other underlying reasons why people drug and use alcohol, gamble, do all those other things, right? We need to have awareness surrounding that. But you also don't need drugs and alcohol to survive. Okay, I think that's the part that gets kind of lost in this, is you need food in order to survive. Your body needs food, nourishment, all those things in order for you to actually breathe and function in life as we go through that.
So you have as you're going through this, you have to recreate a relationship with yourself and with food. Because if you don't do that, you're going to go right back where you were. Yes. You can do all the healing that you want emotionally. And I did this with my first beta group. And at the end, there was still this, well, I don't have a relationship with food. I still am not sure how to actually do the thing that best aligns with the best version of me. Sorry,
yes. No, that works perfect. Because yet again, if you have to have food, you don't need drugs and alcohol. So you can get those things out of your system and you can function for the rest of your life. If you don't recreate your relationship, just like what Courtney said, you're going to fall back into old patterning, and you're not a bad person. We just have bad patterns that we need to fix, right? And so while he was going through this, it was, you need to go hard, you need to be militant on this whole thing. And that used to be our our motto, right? Like, no, if you're going to do these things, detox, get yourself out of those, get yourself aware of those things. And yet again, we do have a 10-day detox, but it's 10 days to allow you to recreate and come from a place of awareness, not coming from a place of you need to get that crap out of your system because it's bad or good for you, right? Yeah. And so that's what allowed us to kind of go on this form. It's the intention surrounding it, right? Like, it's not the result, it's the intention in which drives the machine. And so we talked about that a little bit, but it was so her counterpart, the person that she was there with, is eating more of a organic keto type of plan, right? And so she's coming from the realm of more processed foods, more of those type of things as her normal day-to-day activities and diet plan. We'll use that. So the compromise we came up with was, okay, well, what if instead of going all the way over to this realm of trying to eat all organics, non-processed foods, all these things, and instead of over here in the obviously fast food, not organic food process on there, what if we meet in the middle, right? Like, okay, well, what if you still go to one of those two places you were talking about? What if we come up with maybe a little bit different choice of what you can make, so that way you can still get the nourishing aspect of a post-workout, so that way we can feed your body and let it recover properly, but at the same time, you still get to add some serving of vegetables in your diet, right? So you still get some more vitamins, minerals, those kind of things, and you get to dabble a little bit of adding in something different to your palate, right? And so that was the compromise we came up with. You can still have the things that you want, but you get to add in addition, right? Like, we've talked about that several times over there. It's our stance on this is no longer necessarily taking away and restricting. It's adding in addition to, right? So instead of saying you're bad for having these things, you're no longer allowed to have these things. Well, what if we just start to add in other options in there to get you a little bit more variety, get you to see what you do and do not like. And usually when you start to add in certain things, you also start to see the things that are not necessarily aligning and serving you to the version that you ultimately see and want to create in your life.
Yeah. That was a lot, you guys. That was good though. So let us know. Anything else? Okay. Let us know if that helped, but really, again, it's diving deeper into why are you doing the things that you're doing? How do you start to see these things differently? How do you shift into a little bit healthier, happier, more aligned version of yourself? So we've been talking a little bit about the beta program. So we're going to have 20 spots. I think we have 5 of them filled already for our beta program. It's going to start mid-July. The date is iffy. It's probably going to be the 13th, but if you've listened to the last however many episodes, if you listen to one episode and you're like, you know what? There's something that's speaking to me, I want to know more, just drop me a DM, drop Brandon a message. We can chat with you and see if it's a good fit. Like we said, there's only going to be 20 spots and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be about 16 weeks where we shift all parts of your life and really like make the end of 2020 the best that it can be. So if you have questions or interest in that, drop us a DM and we'll be back on here tomorrow. Hopefully we'll both have voices.
I will want to say, you guys, because one other thing I think a lot of people can relate with is that constant yo-yo of starting, stopping, where you feel like you make progress and then you have to restart. I would almost bet a lot of this is because of the things we're talking about today. Yeah. Is we're not recreating, we're not necessarily aware, we're not doing those things. And it's not, and I would say it's also not necessarily your fault. All right, like it's not taking like, well, you're not a bad person. A lot of these things is because we're unaware of it, but we just need to shine a light on it and become aware of it. So that way for the next 40, 50, 60 years of your life, you don't have to feel like, well, my life has to be miserable in order for me to have the things that I want. Or at the same time, well, this is just the way life is. I'm never going to have the things that I want.
Yeah, it's funny because before we got on here, I had a memory pop up that was from last year that said, why self-sabotage isn't what you think it is. I'm going to go watch it, but it's probably worth watching because it's probably exactly what we're talking about, and I haven't re-seen it yet. But anyway, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Hope you guys are having an amazing hump day, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Bye, y'all.